Welcome to Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, thanks for watching. Well, it's time for our popular consumer update, but first, let's talk with the Pennsylvania Medical Society, opioid abuse and more. Let's get to it.
This is Pennsylvania Newsmakers, a fast-paced, unrehearsed weekly discussion with and about the leaders who shape your world. And now, here's your host, Terry Madonna.
Well, welcome back to the program, and hope you're having a great Labor Day. That's a nice long weekend, and I know it feels like, summer, even though we're heading into the fall. I got the great guest. I'm going to ask him about the heat and what's going on in his profession, but joining me is Dr. Theodore Christopher. He's the president of the Pennsylvania Medical Society, and he's been on the program many times. All right, Doc, I have to start out with, you're a medical emergency room physician. And this heat must be, are you seeing a lot of patients?
No question, Terry. I think yesterday, I think we had they shut down the emergency department to fire rescue because we were getting so many patients.
Are you serious?
But the heat is, it's really a social determinant, and that's something I'll talk about later on. But if your house doesn't have air conditioning, if it's really too hot, and you're not keeping yourself well hydrated, if you're older, if you're of the elderly population, and you're not keeping up with your hydration, you have a real risk of having either heat illness or heat stroke, and then you belong in the emergency department. And yesterday, with temperatures over 100, we were busy.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I mean, that was a horrific week that we've just been through. I mean, and I'm on this big hydration kick. I think that's a fundamental problem. I mean, you ought to stay out of the heat. I mean, out of the sun directly. But boy, the hydration issue is something else. All right, let's go to the big topic. I don't think we can get through a week where I don't see 2 or 3 stories in the media about the opioid epidemic. Can I still use the word epidemic?
Absolutely, Terry. It is not going away. We're making some progress, but there's a lot more work to be done. Still, I think, you know what the numbers are, 5,000 deaths in Pennsylvania, around 1,400 in Philadelphia. That's about 13 Pennsylvanians every day who die of the opioid, of overdose on opioids. And that's just on scratching the surface. Then there's a bunch of problems that come from opioid use, and that's I think, for example, trauma patients and all the illnesses and trauma that comes from opioid deals and things like that of our patients. So it's a real issue still, and as I said, we're making headway, but a lot more work to be done.
All right, tell our viewers. I think this is an important. How do you get? I mean, what are some of the ways in which you get addicted? And, with opioids, and then it leads to sometimes heroin. And go ahead.
There's many ways, but I think what the doctors have realized, it's by our pens and by our prescriptions. So if we prescribe even 1 day of opioids for a patient, there's a 6% chance a year later that you'll be on those opioids. If you prescribe opioids for a week, it's up to about 30%. So
30% a week.
The addiction, the potential for addiction is real, and it's devastating. And so, but to that end, to the Pennsylvania Medical Society and other efforts, we've succeeded in Pennsylvania alone, decreasing the prescriptions that the doctors write, about 1 million, but less last year. And so we're making some headway in that arena.
Maybe I'm wrong about this, but I always thought it started out with real concern that physicians have about the pain that people go through. And you're trying to, I mean, you go into a doctor's office, we all do, I complain about something, and what does the physician want to do? They want to relieve you of the pain.
That's correct. And I think a lot of patients have pain. That's why they come to see you, especially in the emergency department where I work. And so as a physician, you take an oath and you want to really help patients and make sure that their pain goes away. What I think we went overboard in is thinking that we have to take away the pain 100%. And I think the conversation has to be with patients that, yes, you just sprained your ankle. Yes, you just broke your bone. Yes, you have abdominal pain. But let's try and manage your pain in a way that we don't have to use narcotics and opioids.
All right, we're going to run to a break. When we come back, I want you to talk about something you call the social determinants of health, and we're going to use that thing called a vaccine that we all get from time to time.
Yep.
We'll be back in a moment.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry, the statewide voice of business, and by the Pennsylvania State Education Association and Partners for Public Education, bringing the power of a great education to our schools, our students, and our communities. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Highway Information Association, the go-to source to learn about transportation projects and issues. Please visit pahighwayinfo.org. And by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business.
Welcome back to the program. We're chatting with Dr. Ted Christopher. He's the president of the Pennsylvania Medical Society, and we're doing an extraordinarily important topic that affects all of us. Doctor, there's something called social determinants of health. What are they?
It's the hot button now in healthcare. So 80% of a person's health is outside of seeing the doctor in the hospital, in the doctor's office. It's what you do after you leave our office and you go home. And you live your life, and it's about your income, it's about your housing, it's about your transportation, it's about the food that you eat. And so these are social determinants. And so these, again, 80%. And in this country, the U.S., as you know, spends the most money on healthcare of all the countries in the world per capita GNP, but the least amount of money on the social services that really affect someone's health, like, again, housing, like food, and like transportation. So as we identify these things, and it even, so for example, if you have no income and you can't get your vaccines on time for school, I mean, these kind of issues are all involved in social determinants.
Yeah, and you talk about vaccines and its immunity, as you like to say, in the context of school-age children. Say a little bit.
Well,
about
that. So what's in the press these days is the rise of measles again. So and measles comes out because you're not vaccinated. It's very simple. It's a very simple vaccine to get, and so we're trying to really promote that. And so vaccines have gotten some bad press, as you know, but they're still very effective. They work, and they should be done.
And we thought some of these. I mean, when I grew up, we expected to get measles and chicken pox, right? I mean, it was just something that you expected to get, and now.
That's right. Well, and measles can be, I think, devastating. You can die from measles and get brain illnesses and brain infections and things like that. So it's important to get the measles vaccine. And so the Pennsylvania Medical Society is really big on that. So please, if you're sending your kids to school, if you have a plan with your doctor to get your vaccines.
Great advice. I want to just return to something that is relevant to the opioid crisis, and that's the role that the state legislature should play in terms of whether there should be guidelines and how that all gets done. You have some problems with that, don't you?
Well, I think the guidelines, so we've been working very hard the last 4 or 5 years on guidelines per specialty. So the emergency medicine doctors have guidelines, the geriatricians have guidelines. This
is how to deal with opioids when a patient comes in.
How to prescribe opioids.
Got it.
How to prescribe.
Got it.
And so there's guidelines, they work, and they're just being revised now. What we don't want is to have those guidelines mandated. And so there can't be, and here's my plot for this, a cookie, cutter approach to this. Because patients are all different. And guidelines help you treat, I'd say maybe 90% of the patients, but there's always that 10% who should be treated differently. So our message to the legislators is to really keep these as guidelines and don't mandate that by law.
Okay, before I let you go, one last question. In your line of work, in addition to heat, opioids, I mean, you see it all. I mean, it's something I know a little bit about from my days when, in Lancaster County Emergency Medical Council, where we set up the 9/11, I think I mentioned that before, 9/11 operation. And I quite frankly don't know how you do it. I mean, you get people in with 18,000 different problems.
Well, that's what emergency medicine physicians are trained to do, and we're truly on the front lines of healthcare.
Yeah.
So, and we see it all, but I think we're trained to see it all and to treat it all. So that's what we do.
Should we be putting more money, and should there be more emergency expansions? I think I know what you're going to say.
Well,
but that's okay.
I'm always trying to get. I think. Like why patients come to the EDs and in the ERs is because of access to care. So if they had access to the private doctors, they wouldn't have to come to the emergency room. But we're happy to take care of everybody.
It's a great update. Thanks. You'll come back and we'll move on to another important healthcare subject. All right, let's do it. Our consumer literacy update. We got some important subject matter to chat with you about.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Credit Union Association. Pennsylvania Credit Unions, where people are worth more than money. To find a credit union that is right for you, check out ibelong.org. And by the Energy Association of Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania's energy information source. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Association of Pennsylvania State College and University Faculties, representing the faculty and coaches who are devoted to providing quality public higher education for Pennsylvania's college students.
Welcome back to the program. Well, I'll tell you what, a day doesn't go by and two words come up: data breach. And we have the folks from the Pennsylvania Credit Union Association. They come on monthly to do a popular consumer, I'll call it consumer literacy. Maybe that's the best way to put it. Joining me is George Nahodil. He's the CEO of Members First Credit Union. And of course, Patrick Conway. He's a regular president and CEO of the Pennsylvania Credit Union Association. Pat, let me start with you. 2018, is it accurate to call it the year of the data breach?
Unfortunately, yes. Data breaches were up in 2017 from the prior year by 45%.
Oh my gosh.
There's a data breach in the United States every 12 hours. So unfortunately, we're seeing an increase in this problem, and I think we can expect more of that in 2018.
And you have a list. I'm just going to read this list. It's amazing. VTech, Aetna, FedEx, Orbitz, Under Armour, Panera Bread, City of Goodyear, Arizona, Chili's, Autism Health Foundation, and the list, George, the list doesn't stop, does it?
Yeah, Terry, we're inundated constantly with the breaches, and then we have to clean it up so that our members are protected.
Sure. And it happens anywhere, right?
Happens anywhere.
I mean, we have to no one is secure and no one is safe, would you say?
No, absolutely. The attacks on systems they're just constant,
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to stick with you because you're in the field, you're meeting customers day to day. The fact of the matter is it's all about, not totally, but it's heavily about that little card we carry around in our wallet. You know what card I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, I mean, people have credit cards and they have debit cards, and so the cards are really great pieces of, the use of the cards are fantastic because it's convenient.
Oh, yeah.
It's very easy for them to have access to their money. They can go to any store and obviously use it.
Yeah.
But more importantly, they're not liable.
The people I hang around with, the millennials, they don't carry cash anymore.
No, that's right.
And
that's
I'm sure you find that out too. I mean, what's cash? It's all about the cards.
That's right. Even an old guy like me, I put almost everything on my cards, and it's a convenient way, as a consumer to spend, and it's a safe way to spend. So even in this environment of data breaches, use of debit and credit cards is very safe because consumers have zero liability. Financial institutions like Members First, accept that responsibility and do a great job protecting their members and their customers.
Yeah, well, in 1980, 15% of all the payments that we made were paid with that little plastic card we carry around, and today it's 60%, to get to your point, right?
Yeah, consumers are really adopting very quickly to these cards, and because of the convenience.
Yeah, and why not? It makes it easier. It's you get a card out, you get a receipt, and I've noticed a lot of people, if I'm in line behind them, they don't even wait for the receipts.
Yeah.
I mean, they just simply get up and move on, and so who bears the burden? You know where I'm heading with this? Who has to pay for it?
Well, in the end, financial institutions, banks and credit unions, are responsible for these breaches, and we bear the cost of the breaches from other institutions, like the retailers, which is really not fair.
Yeah.
But our interest is really in the consumer and our members, and taking care of them and making sure they have the convenience to use the cards.
So let's run to a break. I want to continue this conversation. I want to go to, there's consumer exposure, and then the big topic in the next segment is going to be, what can we all do to protect ourselves? We'll do it in a moment.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Medical Society, inspired physicians committed to the good health of Pennsylvanians and the advancement of the practice of medicine, and by the Pennsylvania Healthcare Association, the future of long-term care.
Well, welcome back to the program. I'm chatting with George Nahodil. I got that right. He's the head of the Members First Federal Credit Union, and Pat Conway, a frequent guest. He's the president of the Pennsylvania Credit Union Association. We're talking about identity theft, data breach. We want to get to a couple of other very important topics, but before we leave this, consumers protecting themselves, what should they do?
Well, Terry, I think the most important thing is check your credit report at least once a year. And if you can, do it more frequently, because that's really how you're going to see a sign of a problem and be in a position to address it. So check your credit report.
Right, and there's a website, annualcreditreport.com, right? Annualcreditreport.com, and you get a freebie. Do I got that right?
Yes.
You get a freebie. All right, there you go. All right, consumers can restore their credit. You probably get this all the time. People come in, they've had a problem, and they go to you, George, how do I get my credit back?
Yeah, I mean, basically what they have to do is, one thing you can do is consolidate your debts, okay? So you can take those high interest rate products that you have, maybe it's a high interest rate credit card, and consolidate it into a low interest rate card, and try to get all your bills pulled together so that you have one low interest rate. One product that you can, take care of. And once you can also start with loans that are basically securitized by your own deposits, which helps you to build your credit back up.
This could be a dumb question, but more and more when I chat with people, and even in my own life, we get more and more and more and more and more credit cards. I mean, and the question is, how many do you really need?
You really do have to be careful, Terry, that you're not getting credit limits that because each card could have a credit limit of $5,000 or $10,000.
Right.
If you have 5 of them, you could have $50,000 in credit card debt.
Yeah, that's a real concern. Maybe that's something we can do in the future. And take a look at. I mean, and I know we all, you want to promote business. You want good. You want customers who are, using the facility. I get that, but there is a limit, right? We got to be careful.
Yeah. You have to exercise discretion with credit, and that's part of our financial education efforts as well.
Yeah. All right. I want to turn to a couple of other subjects. All right. Mobile technology for doing banking, credit union business. Go ahead, take it away.
Yeah. Listen, your iPhone.
I have it right here.
You can basically do everything on that phone. You can take it to check. You can take and use remote deposit capture, and literally take a picture of the front and the back of the check, and it's deposited instantly into your account.
Is that growing?
Oh yeah.
The use of it?
People. A lot of people. Once you do it once, you're hooked. And then you realize how convenient it is, and you just never do it again. You never go to a branch.
And why do I
again.
know that the 80 million millennials are going to lead the way? Am I right about this?
Absolutely.
The 18 to 34-year-olds.
Absolutely. They do everything right on that device.
They're going to lead the way, and pretty soon there won't be any business. Nobody will come into your offices anymore. They'll just do it all remotely, I think, right?
Yeah. I mean, people will come in because they have questions and they want to meet face to face about something that's a little more significant, like I need a mortgage, I need to get a car loan. But the basic things in banking, like depositing a check, right there on that phone. How much do I have in my account? Right there in mobile banking, you can look. You can look at it 20 times a day and see how much you have.
All right, I want to turn to you on a more general topic. It's something that you have to deal with, given your association and the presence that you have throughout the Commonwealth, and that has to do with, is business growing because of the economy? And we're not getting into the presidential election and all of that, but just from your point of view and what you see every day in your job, business growing, or is money being invested, capital investments and all sorts of people being hot? Go ahead, take it.
Yes, Terry, I think the economy is doing very well. We've had sustained incremental growth. I think it's been very positive. We expect that to continue. We do expect the Fed to continue to do incremental rate increases to sort of balance the economic activity, but it's been very good. Our credit unions and financial institutions seem to be doing very well, and their consumers and their members, I think, are spending, and the economy seems to be on a very good track.
Are you worried about inflation? I keep reading now, inflation as a possible deterrent to future growth, and particularly the wages. They've got to obviously go up and keep pace. Go ahead.
Yeah, we're not seeing inflation impacting our balance sheet, and it's not impacting what we see happening at our credit union. And I think the Federal Reserve raising rates is keeping inflation in check. Yeah. And so, and it seems like when one piece of the inflation indicator goes up, like gas prices might go up, another piece, goes down. And so there seems to be a pretty good balance with inflation. Right.
So overall, the economy is growing at a pace, and people are spending more money, even though housing prices are up, and there's no sign that that's going to end anytime soon, is it?
People seem to be very confident in today's economy. Generally, as you know, the market has done very well over the last year. And, people seem to be feeling very good, and I think that's helped to fuel that confidence.
Last month, we did $90 million in auto loans in a month.
Seriously?
Yep.
And is that a record for you all?
It's a higher month, but we're doing $80-90 million a month.
Thanks for coming in for the update. It's always appreciated. All right, we'll see you next week for another edition of Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, stay well.